Hello, my name is Sunny Neal and I'm a midlife creation expert, and I wanted to do a really short video off the back of a conversation that I've been having with some people around the transition that you make in your 50s at around 56. It's quite a shocking transition for people because you've just gone through this expansionary period of your life through the 50s where you've been expressing all of the values that you've got back out into the world, and then suddenly it feels like it comes to a jittering stop and you expect to be exploding with energy and continuing to expand the things you spent the last few years building, that you spent your entire life kind of getting to that point, and then suddenly the bottom falls out. It's a bit like, if you can remember, what would have happened at around 38 to 40 when you stopped the first expansionary period of your life and hit the middle period where things kind of hit a plateau, where you're kind of reaching the next part on the arc. You've come up, you hit the middle, so you've come up the arc, and at around this stage, 38, you suddenly realized you're reaching the plateau, and that period of expansion and growth was coming to an end. And then you kind of had to go through the plateau in the middle part and the period of deep involution, of looking inwards, of recreating yourself in your life, discovering the new values that you could express into the world. And then at the other end of the arc, you came out of it at about 48, and suddenly you had this period of real expression on your way back down the arc, or back down the physical arc, as you went up the more spiritual path. So your leitmotif, your voyage of life, starts at the beginning, goes up the first half, through the middle, and then if you get it right, goes up, continuing up through the spiritual path. Or if not, it goes down into the period of, well, decay really, but Harley Davidson's cosmetic surgery, resisting the pull of the end of your life. But if you've gone up, and most of you who are listening to this will have gone up and found a form of self-expression in your 50s, you feel like that's going to go on forever, like you did in your 30s. But all the literature and my clients and the people I'm speaking to, the woman I was talking to just today, what actually tends to happen is you reach that point about 56 to 57 where it kind of suddenly stops, and you're left with not new values, because your values, you've kind of internalized them, you've expressed them, they're there, but you're left with, have I been expressing them the way that I wanted to over the last 20, 30 years, or really only 10 years since my 40s? Have I been finding the right kind of expression? Is this sufficient for me? Is this the way that I want to do it into the future? And invariably, of course, because you're going further and further up the spiritual path, further back out towards the cosmos, towards your connection with spirit, towards your end, you'll find that the way you've been delivering those values out into the world has been too material for you, too focused on the delivery of them, and kind of not deep enough. There needs to be for you a deeper form of expression, but you probably don't know what that is. I mean, you don't, because you've already deepened it through your 40s and your 50s, and now suddenly you've got to go to the next level of that. And like the time in your 40s where you experience the ending of something, at 56 you're experiencing the ending of something that has been you felt like the culmination of your life's trajectory to that point, and then suddenly the bottom falls out and it's insufficient. And it's kind of worse because you're kind of at the second last third of your life, and you're like, what, now? This is now? In my 50s? Like, this should be, I'm heading upwards and outwards to the end, and all of a sudden this is not enough. So you've got a couple of questions to ask yourself at this point that are kind of profound about what you're going to pull forward for the last and final great kind of phase of your life, from 56 to about 70. And not that your life ends at 70, but from 70 onwards you enter a completely different phase. My 71-year-old client calls it karmic free time. She's free now, and she is. She doesn't have any bonds to break, anything to make. she's been given a free time in which to express what she's learnt and re-impress in the world all that she's learnt. But she's at that other end. You in your 50s still have that last 20 years to go, excuse me, 15 years to go, where you get to find a deeper form of self-expression for the values that you've spent your life embodying. If you've done this work, right, and if you haven't, then you really need to start doing it now, and you're probably not watching my video. So these are the questions that you need to be asking. Things like, and I've taken some of these questions from this book. It's called Phases by Bernard Leavegood. He's dead, died in the 90s, in his 90s, and was actually born near here in Sumatra as a child of a Dutch colonial family, and then went back to Holland and built an amazing career around organisational development and the growth of the human psyche through work. One of the foundational thinkers of this space, and fundamentally an anthroposophist who thought from the perspective of the wisdom of human beings. So this is an extremely profound book, and one of many that he's written, but really the one that I use quite a lot when it comes to looking at the phases of life. And I'd recommend it to anyone that's interested in looking at their own phases of life. So Bernard Leavegood, if you can see how it's spelt. So the questions, right? Because you're entering the last phase, you want to start looking at authentically, what am I going to take through the pearly gates with me at the end? So what am I going to take through beyond death that is important to me and to the world that I've spent my life learning about? These will be things, and the things to let go of are things associated with status, or knowledge, or even experience. You see, these things we've built, we may have let go of the need for money or the need for material, but now is the next stage of letting go, right? You slowly shed the cloaks of life as you head towards the end. And now is the time to start letting go of status, not money, but status. Knowledge that you spent a lifetime accumulating. What happens when I let go of that knowledge? What's left inside of me that is inherently me that I can then express? And what if I let go of all of my experience even? What's there? What's left that's mine that I would take through the pearly gates to death? Because when you let those things go, that source of you is the thing that you will spend the next 10 to 15 years finding forms of expression for. You truly become you in the fullest sense without all of the other things that have been known of as you, including by yourself. Now, I'm 42, I haven't lived through this, so I can only speak of this from the perspective of my clients and my reading and my knowledge of this wisdom. But it's invariable that people will deal with that particular set of questions and that'll come to a crunch at around 46. A friend of mine is dealing with quite an intense health issue as she reaches that particular stage of her life. And dis-ease is always associated with the changes of the tides within you, the forces of life within you and your soul's journey. And it comes out in a number of different ways, in a number of forms of crisis where you then need to grapple with the values that you have, or what you're giving back, or what you're letting go. So the 56 one is the letting go of the next stage of what it is that is critically you, so that you can find a more true and absolute sense of yourself. So one is letting that go. The other is then, of course, the material expression of that, which is abdicating what you've built to express those values. I'll just let that sink in for a minute. I, at 38, 39, 40, had to let go of the career I'd spent my life building, becoming a senior leader in a kind of a government agency and commercial sense, and that was extremely difficult for me. Now you, in your 56, have an opportunity and even a drive to find a way to let go and abdicate of what it is that you have spent an even potentially longer time building. So I can only imagine how potentially challenging that would be. My friend has a very successful law firm, and there's an opportunity to discover these deeper sense of self and then express it in the world. But the way to do that often involves letting go of the structures that we've built around ourselves that would have allowed us to express those values in the past. So that doesn't mean you just quit your job or sell your business, although in a lot of cases it does mean that. It doesn't have to, but it certainly is the time for succession planning, really important, for looking at how to give it away. One woman that's quite famous for her life story in another book that I will show you. Actually, I'll just do it now since I've got it here. This one, I give it to my clients as well, Taking Charge, by the Brazilian psychologist Gudrun Burkhardt. Full of stories of people's lives that Gudrun then starts to pull apart at each phase of life to look for their leitmotif. So one of the Brazilian women in this had spent her life from the age of 16 to 56 through all these permutations building a very successful business in Brazil. That at 56 she suddenly felt the need to give away, and she literally gave the whole business away to all except for one store that she wanted to manage for herself, to I think to her son or her son-in-law, who then managed that business and continued to expand it and grow it. Because she built it, her husband had built it from scratch. And then when he died, she took over it and she really expanded it into an enormous, but really substantial business in Brazil, and then handed it on. And at 56, had to find other ways to express the values that she'd been able to express through her business. So she'd worked very, very hard on building this business, but then at 56, she found a way to abdicate the material expression of the things that she had to give back, the status, the knowledge, the experience she'd accumulated, to find a way to express a deeper sense of who she really is into the world. So that's Taking Charge by Gudrun Burkhardt. I'd recommend that as well. It's very good. Much easier read than the other book that I've recommended. So you're at that stage where you want to look at how to let go of the material aspects. So succession planning, selling the businesses, looking at your retirement, like an authentic conversation about what you're going to give back in your life, so that you can really look at whether you can find another way to express that from 60. Really, you don't want to be waiting till you're 65 or 67. You want to be starting to let these things go now, whatever that looks like for you. Then third question is you want to start looking at, well, what do I want to achieve now? So you're going to spend this time exploring the real you, I suppose, to paraphrase Julia Gillard. Not that version of the real you, the real you, and express that in a new form. So you have to let go of the old forms. But then you've got to start looking at what are the new forms and how am I going to express that out into the world. So what do you actually want to achieve when you do die? What do you want to look back? And this is these conversations that people have about writing your, this word always escapes me, but writing your, what's on your tombstone? What's that called? I can't remember. But what people say at your funeral, you're all busting to tell me what it is now over the video, I know, because you know the word. But that thing that you write, eulogy, at the funeral, where people talk about your life and what you've accomplished, this is where you can start to really look at that from a whole new level. You might have written that in your 30s and it would be expressive of the values that you had at that stage of your life. In your 40s, what you're dealing with at that stage. At 56 is the first time you can really start authentically looking at, well, what is it that I want to be known for to give back into the world? Because you're starting to let go of all the other stuff. Knowledge, experience, wisdom. You let go of the attachment to resources and material values. What is it that I want to be known for? What do I want to achieve for the last part of my life? So this is the preparation phase of the final great stage of life, which is the stage from 70 onwards, which is the stage of where you're a child of God, you're free karma, the child of the patriarch, the age of the patriarch or the matriarch. Goethe used to say there are three ages in life. There's the child is a realist, the adult is an idealist, but the old person is a mystic. And you're now entering that phase of the true exploration of what it means to be a mystic. you've gone through the stage of being the elder where you give back and express back to the world and train and mentor. And not, again, not that you should suddenly stop doing that, but you now start to look at those deeper sense of self. What is the you when not only material values, but experience, knowledge, wisdom, a deeper set of elements that have defined you up until now are let go? What's the piece that's there? Because that's the person you want to fully embody by the time you reach the age of the matriarch or the patriarch, or when you become the child of God. There's nothing left of you but the true soul that is you, that you can then be around people. My grandmother is 98 years old now, so she's right at the end of that. But so she's not really able to provide a great deal now. But 10 years ago, in her 80s, she was a little lady, part Aboriginal, so quite dark. You would never know it with me, blue eyes, but I got the skinny legs of an Aboriginal. And she had too. She's very wise, very quiet, very beautiful person. And she would walk into a room, and everyone in that room would just calm down. Now, she brought that with her into the space. And it wasn't her experience, although I thought that it was, and it wasn't her knowledge. It was just the person that she was. All the rest of it had been taken away, and all that was left was this beautiful expression of absolute herselfness. And that's the stage you want to start approaching from 56. You've got 15 years really to start exploring what that would look like, what you want to achieve in that period of time, what you need to let go of in that period of time, so that that last phase of your life is an expression of just who you were born as. And at that point, you start to, obviously, from 70, progress back into the purity of childhood. My 71-year-old client is right at the beginning of that, and she's full of verve and vim and vigor, but you can tell that she's starting to let go of those last pieces, or she's let most of them already go, and she's starting to express a childlike wonder in the world in a really beautiful way that is just going to deepen and strengthen as time goes on, because she's done this work. So to get back to you, you're 50 in that 56, 58 year crisis period, or coming up to it, or coming through it, anywhere between maybe 55 and 60 years old, and this is the transition that you'll be grappling with now, and that you'll be living with over the next few years. It's a challenging time. If you're in the beginning, you can prepare a little bit for it. You can do some reading and some learning. I've got quite a lot of articles on my website, but there's other places like these books I've suggested. There's not a lot of literature out there on this, but you should start to explore that. And then if you're in the middle of it, this is what you're dealing with. And if you're coming out the other end, then you're looking at the preparation for that last great phase. You've got 10 or 15 years, and what do you want to achieve in that time that is just a true expression of yourself? So I hope that this has been of value to you, and for people in this particular age bracket, what you needed to hear right now. If you want to know more, so you can. What I'm trying to do now is to build a YouTube channel, so that people can subscribe. And this is my kind of first longer YouTube where people could possibly do that. And I'm going to be posting regularly on issues around life phases and the stages of life and what you have to deal with at different stages and phases. And as I build up this library, hopefully people will be able to delve in and dig the piece that's relevant for them at that point in time. So subscribe to the channel if you want to get them as they come up. You can click a little, I've just discovered a little bell sign, and on the bell sign you get an alert that says another video has been put up on that channel. You can subscribe to my newsletter, which I would recommend you do, which we'll find a way to put on the YouTube video as well, but you can also go to my website to do that. And yeah, that's it. You can obviously contact me through the website if you want to book a call to talk about these kinds of things. I'm making an effort now to start putting time into people to help explore these issues a little bit. I do a lot of training and stuff, but this is kind of it's free. So you can have a free conversation with me about this, because it's something we don't discuss a great deal, and it gives a great deal of freedom and power to people to know where they're at and what they're dealing with. So that's enough of the housekeeping. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.